Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and I am back from my camper vacation. And today, episode 243 is going to be all about how to customize a Monday.com board, especially for research work or maybe even a little bit of project management. So that's what we're going to focus on today. I know some people might use Google Sheets, some people might use Airtable. I want to talk about why I love Monday.com. And as always, this is hashtag not sponsored. I pay Monday. They don't pay me. I do have an affiliate code with them, cxcc.to/Monday. Totally optional to use. Otherwise, just go to Monday.com if you don't want me to get the treats. A quick thank you to our past and present Patreon members. If you would like to be a little bit more connected to my universe, eliminate the algorithms of YouTube and LinkedIn, and make sure you are getting the latest stuff and the most discounts, please consider joining the Patreon, even at the free level. Most of our people are on the free level, and I cherish every single member. Special thanks to those on paid levels, but totally optional. And the new URL shortener, dcx.to, has everything, all the links to our courses and our new upcoming courses. I'm even going to be announcing a new one this week, and how to be part of the streams and join the communities and all of that. So, with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about Monday.com. Monday.com, again, hashtag not sponsored, I'm just a fan, is a system where you can make your own boards. And what I find most interesting about Monday.com is the flexibility. If you are someone who really likes flexibility and customization of a product, Monday could be for you. So let me press the share my screen button. Okay, looks like this. And now you're seeing the sausage being made, and let's flip over to a Monday board. And hopefully I should be seeing any chats over here. I'll have to check to see if I'm missing anything in any of the live chats. But if you're watching live, say something so I can see if the live chat is working. And otherwise I will have to check on this my own ways. So, oop, and I'm hearing myself out of my thing. Thanks to the people watching live on LinkedIn. I definitely see you, and hopefully, okay, great, Melanie. Thank you. I'm not alone. I was having trouble with my live chat today, so it's great to see that it is working. All right, so. Hey, Marjolaine as well. Great. So, yeah, everybody, come say hi. I want to see, even if you're on LinkedIn and YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. So, this is an example of something I put together over the weekend to show you. I imagined that we had a little participant database for being able to recruit for our research. Now, this could be a pool of thousands of people, or this could just be the results from one screener survey. So I had everybody just get a number. I created a status for them, so kind of an active, do not contact, and then the in progress I meant to take off, and then like select. Maybe we want to pick who we want to select for a particular study. If someone says please don't contact me anymore, then of course I would put them in do not contact. What date were they added to the database? So I was doing some testing this weekend, as you can tell by the yesterday dates. This is when were they most recently in a study. Sometimes when we're looking at participant pools, we don't want to tap into the same people too often, so we want to make sure that we are keeping track of when we last worked with this person so that we don't bug them again. And then what I did was I made a little screener survey in Alchemer, hashtag not sponsored. You can make your screener survey wherever you like. And then I used Zapier, also not sponsored. These are all companies I pay, if not overpay. And I had Zapier take new screener survey results and dump them into here. And I'm not going to show you that. You can sort that out separately. But I just for sample data, I collected contact information and I collected what fruits do you like? And those were check boxes. So you can see I'm getting multiple answers here, automatically, comma, separated. And then I made up some fake names and some locations. And then in Monday, we can always do searching and filtering and sorting. So the nice thing is, for example, some of you know from my earlier article and video about weeding out people who might be bots or who might be answering things to just try to be included in the study. I have onomigo as a possible fruit that you might enjoy eating, and we all know onomigo is not a fruit. So hypothetically, I could say, let's filter these people out. Now, Monday has some default filters, and these might work for you, but I'm just going to go to the advanced filters and build my own filter. So I can say, go look at the fruits column and find something that doesn't contain onomigo. And as soon as I do that, you can see it filtered out everything else on the screen that wasn't that. Now you could save this as a new view. What's a view in Monday? So I can say save this as a new view. And what'll happen is up here I get a new tab, and I can say not onomigo. And so what if I want, I can go to the main table, which is everything that I had, or I can go to these other tabs and find things that have been filtered out, or I can just temporarily filter things out if I want to. Now, another interesting thing about Monday.com that I want to make sure I tell you about early, even though we're going to dive into it later in the webinar, is to me one of the places where it stands out is not just oh, I can take different slices of data and put them in tabs, because people might be saying, I can do that in Excel, I can do that in Airtable. Here's where Monday gets interesting. Let's come up here to the plus and say we want to create a new view. Now, the view could be a table, but the view can also be slicing the data in different ways. And again, I'm going to show you something much deeper into this later in our time together. But I want to make sure people understand that this functionality is here. I can say, I want to create some charts. I want to create a form. I'm not going to use Alchemer and dump it into here. I'm going to create my own form. I still like to make my forms in Real Survey Tools so that I can use logic. The forms on Monday don't have those unless you pay extra. So, this is, and then you could make a Kanban board. You can make a Kanban board where you show, let's say, for example, we've got some people. Let's make some different statuses. And let's imagine that we've got people who we are considering. Let's call them, let's say we're thinking about who to invite into a study. So we'll say this one is potential, and this one is select. And then maybe we might say, contacted, and maybe we might say, let's do another one, completed. Now, there's other statuses that we deal with when we're planning research, and I would also probably reorder some of these, but you get the idea. And now let's go with that. So let's imagine that John is a potential person and Debbie has already been contacted. Cool. Now imagine we had a Kanban board representing this. So I could say, make me a Kanban board. Try new Kanban. I don't know. That's got an AI symbol next to it. I don't know if I want to do that. But basically, I could come in here and I could say, these are the ways that I want to create this board. Right now, I've got participant number 2 in potential, and I've got contacted, and that's participant number 3. I can say, which columns do I want to add? The battery is this thing up here to show how many people are in a certain status. I don't know if I want to see the new Kanban view, but okay. Okay, not bad. So a little bit more customization of the cards. I guess hypothetically we could go in and say, show this person's name and not just their number, because now we have number, status. We don't need what date we saw them. We may or may not want to see what fruits. We could see other information. But the idea would be, because it's a Kanban board, you could just come in here and go, hey, I heard from number 2, or I contacted number 2, and now I'm just going to drag them there, and that's going to change the status. And when I come back to my table, the status has been updated. So I'll be showing you more about this later in our time together. I hope this is starting to make sense. Any questions coming up for people as you're seeing this about the way that this works? And again, I welcome all questions. I'm happy to talk about Monday.com. Not sponsored, just a fan. Let's say we needed to collect more information about people, and now you can use the plus and you can add all different types of columns. So in Monday.com, it's every column has a type. So it's not like Excel where everything is going to be text or numbers or something. Here in Monday, you can have different types of columns based on the types of data you intend to put in. So you can have a column of hashtags, you can have a column of text, email addresses, uploaded files. Maybe you have a separate consent form and you keep it in a document form and you want to upload it into here so it's associated with these people. You could create a files one, and then that way you would be able to upload that or have some way to bring it in. So you can create all different types of, and these aren't the only ones. There are more columns. So it's really about what type of data do you want to work with. And again, I'll be showing you more complex boards later in the webinar, and you'll see a lot of these other types being used, especially things like timeline. When I start getting into project management, the timeline is a really great column to use. Mirror is really interesting because Mirror lets you connect boards to each other. So you can end up making, hands up, who knows what a relational database is? You can end up creating boards that connect to each other. I did this when I was an almost executive at an agency a few years ago, and we had one Monday board of all of the contractors that worked at the agency from time to time, and we had another Monday board of our projects and potential projects. And we could use the mirroring and that relationship to say, we're going to put this person on this project. And so it was a really interesting way to connect all the things and control it from one system, the kind of thing you probably couldn't do very well in Excel, and I'm not sure if Airtable does that. So here's an example of some ways that we might use this for something like research participants. And let me also show you quick automations. So automations are just setting up conditions in Monday where something happens automatically. So let's say when I change somebody to do not contact because they got in touch with me, they don't want to be in our database anymore, they don't want to be part of our studies. When I change a status to do not contact, how about we have it move automatically to what Monday calls a group. We'll have it move down to the do not contact group. You could drag it yourself, but automations are cool. So let me show you an example of, I'm just going to say add a custom automation. So I'll just build this from scratch. Yes, thanks to the Patreon members. So when this happens, when a status changes to something, which status? Okay, it's our status column. What should it change to? If it changes to do not contact, what should we do? Let's move an item to a different group. Do not contact. Create automation. Was that easy? And so now the system knows if I go in and I say, you know what? Participant number 2 never wants to hear from us again. Do not contact them. I can click do not contact. This should also set off the automation, which as you saw, moved it automatically into that group. And that way, when we are working with trying to find the right people who we want to meet, we can make sure we don't accidentally pull from the do not contact group. So I'll take a breath for a moment and I'll ask if there are any questions about using something like Monday.com for a participant database. Next, we're going to build something from scratch together, and we're going to take a look at what if we wanted to use Monday with its own form to be an intake form for potential research projects. And I hear this from time to time from lead researchers and research managers. Oh, we don't really have an intake form for research. I get all these weird requests, and then I have to have all these meetings. Well, what if we wanted to make a form? With that dumps into a Monday board. So I'm going to click plus. Let's make a new board. I don't need a template. I like to build them from scratch. So what's our new board? We'll call this the sample research intake. Now, is it a main board, a private board, or a shareable board? This is a little bit deeper into Monday.com. It depends on who else is going to see this. And so if you want everybody in your workspace to see it, it's a main board. If you really want to tightly control who sees it, it's a private board. And if you intend to share it with some people, especially guest collaborators from outside your account, shareable could be the right way to go. So just for now, I'll say private. And then it's interesting, they ask you to give a name to the items. So notice that we have rows in the Monday board, and we think of these as something. You can see the board behind me said participant. I put that in. So what should these be? These might be projects. Let's call these projects, or we can write our own and create the board. So a default Monday board usually comes with a bunch of columns I don't use. Let's also this is a totally blank Monday board. They give you 2 groups. They give you 5 sample items. A person is someone in your Monday account. So you might say, oh, I'm going to assign this project to this lead researcher, or I'm going to assign it to this person. That's where person gets involved. I'll show you that in our next board. So sometimes I use that and sometimes I don't. You might want to assign a person, especially if you're working with a larger department. Maybe you're in leadership. Again, status. So you can click on here and you can create different statuses, if that's the right word. I don't think it's stati. So you might say this one is canceled. How many L's are in canceled? I don't know. This one is done. You can make different labels. Maybe this is a new request. And you can use color coding. Obviously, the color coding isn't totally going to work if you're color blind. They don't have patterns. They just have colors, and you can't customize these colors. You just picked from the colors. So do the best you can. So let's imagine that we've got these labels, maybe the date that the request came in, today. What else would we want to know from people? We might want to know their name, so we can make a text field, and we can say their name. If we tend to deal with a lot of people from around an organization, we might not know who they are. We might want to ask their title or their department. So again, we can, I'll say this is title, and maybe we collect their email address. Where was that? Email, here we go. Monday has a special email field that makes it a clickable mail to. Anybody who's live, what else might we want to collect? Let's see. We might want to collect the timeline. Is there a timeline when they expect the project to start and end? Maybe a priority. Maybe we create another status and we ask them the priority of this project. And again, we can edit these labels. By default, it always does done, progress, and stuck. So we might say low, medium, and high priority. And again, you can use whatever colors you like for this. You can change these colors. You just click on the paint bucket and it'll give you the choices of the colors. So you can color code things how you like. And but let's, as we build this, let me show you, because Monday is about taking the same data and visualizing it and showing it in different ways. Let's look at our form. So I can say, you know what, I want a form. And Monday says, cool, here's what your form looks like now. Name, status, and I go, ooh, wait a minute. Some of these are behind the scenes information that I don't want people to fill out. So what is name? This would probably be the project name. So there you go. And status, I don't want people to see. And let's see, hide question. So that's going to be my status. I don't want people to see that and choose a status. The date would hypothetically be today. So I don't know if I can auto put today in. Okay, we go today as default date. And then I could probably hide this. But even if I wanted that, I could always make an automation that says when there's a new item, put today's date on here. This is a person's name, so name of person making request. Again, you could write this better than I am. This is just short. This is your job title, your email, timeline, project timeline, and priority. These probably need to be reordered, but there you go. So you have an example of how we can make a super quick form, and I can publish this, and let's fill it out just for fun. And again, you can practice it and see how you can make it better. And again, if you have questions as I go, let me know. So here we go. The project name is Stealth Research. The person making the request is Debbie Levitt. My job title is CXO. My email is, and just to not have any personal information up here, we'll put a fake email, me@me.com. And so nobody's, and then when do I think this project needs to start and end? This project needs to start July 22 and end on August 9. And it's medium priority. Submit. And there's some other things that we can customize here. But for now, let's just go back to our board and we can delete these fake ones. Let's delete all the fake ones here. And okay, there we go. So here is what we just got. It turns out we didn't get the date, so we'd probably have to build an automation that says when something, what I would probably do is build an automation that says when I get a new form, put today's date in the date column and set the status to new request. So I would use automations for that. And now you would be able to work on this from here. Maybe you want to create other columns. Maybe you want to create a, let's do a long text. And that way you can make some notes. Maybe you've met with someone and you've made some notes. But Monday's got a better way to make notes, and they call it updates. So let's say that we've assigned this to you. Here you are. We've assigned this to you, and it's a new rec. And now we're going to start putting in updates. The updates are where you have a lot of the behind the scenes notes for your own team. So the person who put in the request is never going to see this. They only see the form unless you give them access to the board. And I can say, okay, met with Debbie, needs to usability test a prototype. Whatever it is. You can add a file, or maybe you have a link to the prototype. You can @, people if you have other people involved in this board. Maybe you have the whole research team in the board. You can see you can mention different people. That won't work for me right now because I'm the only person on this board, but you can @ them. They'll get a notification that they were mentioned. So you can see it's a whole ongoing conversation, but you're also documenting stuff. So once I click update, that's there. And people can reply to it, people can add more updates, and so you end up having a good set of documentation. You can see why when I have potential clients, I have a Monday board just for this, so that I can make sure that as I have communications with potential clients or I'm sending them a proposal, I get everything in here so later on, because sometimes a potential client comes back to me weeks or months later and I can't be like, what were we talking about? Where did we leave it off? So I use the updates for a lot of those notes. I use the updates for notes in job interviews. When people start telling me how terrible their UX team is and how I need to come fix it, I am writing endless notes here so that if I get to the next interview or the job, I have a lot of information on what I was told. Any questions so far? Anybody still watching live? I'm not seeing a lot of chat messages today, so give me a hello or an emoji up if you are still watching. And if you have any questions about Monday, especially as it might compare to other tools. If not, you can start to see where I'm going with this and you can build your own stuff. Another neat thing you can do is you can change the height if you want to have really tall columns. You can do conditional coloring for those of you who are used to that from Excel. So that's where you can color an entire row or column and make it stand out. I haven't been using the AI assistant, so I can't totally tell you what that does. Oh, default item values. That's what we wanted. When somebody fills out a new form, we want it to say new rec, and I don't think I think the problem is if we say today, it'll literally be today. So we'll just say new rec, and that way that will go in. We might need an automation or some other way to drop the date in, but that's not hard. You can see once we have updates, we've got this little speech bubble says 1. That doesn't stay blue forever. I've noticed it stays blue for some days and then it goes away, probably because it might not need your attention as much. So there you go. And you can continue changing the form, editing the form. I know there's some color options and some other things. So build, customize. So we've got some customizations we could do. Where does the thank you go? Sharing and stuff like that. So you can do a little bit more form customization than I just did, but that's an example. I now want to talk a little bit more about project management, just because I know with research, especially for people who are freelancers, contractors, or in leadership or lead positions, sometimes it's how do I track my whole project? So I'm going to show you how I do it. We did a little bit of this on the Delta CX YouTube channel a couple of years ago. I've upgraded my board since then, and I'll show you a little bit of how I do it. So this is my template, and when I need a template, I just copy it and then I start changing it for what the project is. But let's just look at it for a moment so I can show you all the things that Monday allows me to keep track of and organize and work with. So for example, let's imagine this is kind of a skeleton project template for research. We're going to kick off the project. We're going to examine the existing app and your roadmap. We're going to plan the research. We're going to recruit and schedule, blah, blah, blah. So you can see each of these rows is a task. There's a little number next to the task. These are sub-items. Monday allows you to create sub-items. What I use sub-items for on this particular board is what if I'm working with a team? What if it's me and 2 assistants? So you can see I've made a sub-items board where I've got timeline, status to check that everything in the project's going well, what role someone is. So at my company, we mostly do leads and assistants. We don't have a lot of titles. And I've two bases, I don't know, for pricing. I have what I call HCD, which is kind of our tactical work. And then I have strategy, which as you might guess is our more strategic work. And I am billing those at different numbers. Here is where I'm estimating the hours, and here is a time tracking column. So you can track your time. You can have other people track their time. This is how I know how to pay my team because I can then use another dashboard board to see how much time they tracked in a certain week or month and say, cool, this is what I need to pay them. You'll also notice there is an eyeball crossed out here. This means, because what normally happens is when we get the project, I invite my client to collaborate in this board. That way they can see how the project is going and things like that. But there's some things I don't want them to see. I don't want them to see how much time we've tracked. I don't want them to see what I'm paying the staff because it's certainly less than the client is paying me. So I don't want them to see the estimates I've made on what I'm paying or the actual numbers that I'm paying people. There's a lot of sneaky behind the scenes math that I do not want the clients to see. And so they won't see that. So anything that has the eyeball crossed out, I'm using Monday's feature where column by column, I can say who can see this. And so in this case, this is mostly for me to see. Now, Monday also has formula columns. And if you're good at Excel or Google Sheets, this knowledge translates directly into Monday. So for example, how much am I going to pay an assistant? Well, I've got a little help from Monday on this one because it was tough, but they helped me write a bunch of if statements because we've got are you a lead and or are you an assistant, and is this an HCD pricing or is this strategy pricing? I bet Melanie right now is going, oh boy. So I can say, okay, if you're a lead and it's HCD, you get paid 150 an hour. If it's lead and it's strategy, you get paid 225. If you're an assistant and it's HCD, you get 50. And if it's an assistant and it's strategy, you get 100. So that's how I have the formula working right now. Sometimes, thank you, Melanie. Sometimes clients get discounts or there's different things going on. So I can go in and change them and it'll change it for the whole board because that formula is for that column. So everything in that column gets that formula. So for example, you can see here, I've said this person is an assistant. The pricing is HCD. I estimate they'll work 2 hours. So my estimated payable is 100. 2 times 50. And again, this all helps me forecast things and propose them to clients. If I think it's going to take 4 hours, I can say 4, and now it's going to say 4 hours and 200. And then people could come in and track their time. You can do manual time tracking, or I think you can actually set a timer. I think if you click this, you get manual time tracking, and if you click the play button, it starts a timer for you. So either way. And then what I like to do is I have a couple of other sneaky columns. So again, remember the client can see the sub items, but only these first few columns. They're not going to see everything. And let's roll this up for a minute and let me show you something that I've done. This is where I'm using a mirror column. How can you tell I've got a mirror column in Monday? It puts these underlines on the columns. This one's green, sometimes they're different colors, but basically I'm saying take all the stuff from somewhere else and roll it up. So for example, let's imagine on the roadmap, my work is going well, in progress. Assistant number 1 is doing okay, cool, but then assistant number 2 reports they're blocked. So I've got the status rolling up to what Monday usually calls a little battery, so I can glance at that and go, uh-oh, somebody's in trouble. Now, I also have an automation set up to email me when this happens, and that way I don't have to wait for when I happen to look at this. If somebody picks blocked or what was the other one? I have an automation set up at risk. I have an automation set up to email me. You know, Melanie just set this task to blocked. And that way I'm proactively notified that someone working with me thinks something is wrong. But if I come here and look at this, I can see this, get a little visual cue as well that something is not right. So I can clear these out by just picking nothing. That's the no label, no status. So that's one way that it rolls up. Another way that it rolls up is I've asked it to, these are formula columns. No, these are text columns. This is a formula column. This says add up the lead and add up the assistant. Okay, seems easy enough. And then this one rolls up the number. So again, it's got the green underline. Hard to see if you're red-green colorblind, but there's a thick underline here that says, hey, I'm a mirror column. I'm taking information from somewhere else. There's a relationship here. And I've asked it to add up these hours, these estimated hours. Let's say I think it's 2 hours for me, 4 hours for assistant 1, and 4 hours for assistant 2. This is just for me to do some checking before I give someone an incorrect proposal. I eyeball, does this 6 match this 10? No, it doesn't. That means I need to go in and check this and say, okay, this is 2 for the lead, and this is actually 8 for, and now the 10 and the 10 match. It's a little bit of a manual workaround that I've created so that I can make sure that I'm writing the correct numbers before I pass off a sloppy proposal. This will roll up the time tracking and translate this into, I think, a decimal instead of an hours and minutes. So again, these are just formulas and different things that it's doing to help me out there. So it's the sum of, so this translates it time tracking hours. It takes the time tracking column and instead of hours minutes, it makes it into a decimal, which is easier to multiply by an hourly rate. As you can see. And then I've got what am I billing the client and how much profit is there or markup is there in there for me. Is this making sense, people who are watching live? Do you have questions? I know this is very complicated, but I've made it complicated so that it's got a lot of flexibility in it and it really helps me think about projects. I want to talk about dependent on. Some of you who've done project management know about dependencies. For example, I can't plan research until this has been totally helpful. Great, thanks, Melanie. I can't plan research until maybe for this particular project I need to got stuff popping up. I can't start the research until we've had a certain call, or sometimes this first thing says, let's do a knowledge quadrant exercise, or I need to check out your existing stuff. That means there's a dependency. One can't move on without the other. So you use the dependency column to say, this thing can't start without this other thing. So let me X this out and I'll show you how it works. I can just click in here and I can say, examine existing roadmap doesn't happen until project kickoff happens. All I have to do is click on that and say boom. Now they do have it so that you can set up lag in there, like, hi I10, like project kickoff plus 2 days or whatever, but I found that that was messing me up. So I'm generally not doing it that way. The cool thing about it is, let's say the client says to me, you know what, we can't start on May 1st. We're going to have to move this date. So I can come in here and I can say, okay, the project kickoff is going to be August, Monday the 5th. Now watch what happens to my board. Boom! All of my dates adjusted. How? Why? Because I taught it where the relationships are. This thing starts after this thing, then this thing, then this thing, and then so when I change the timeline, everything will redraw itself. I can do the same thing down here and say, you know what, we're going to start design earlier than January. We want to start design October 1st. Boom. All of those change. Now, as for those of you who are going, hey, wait a minute, wheels turning here, project management, timelines, groups of dates, individual days, groups of dates, relationships, hey, can I get a visualization of that? You can. So if you are anything like me and you like a good Gantt chart, this is again where Monday.com takes data and just shows it to you in another way that you're unlikely to be able to get from things like Excel. I don't know if Airtable does this, but as you can see, this is a Gantt chart. I've got it now. I've got in the settings. I've got it sorted by the not sorted. I've got it colored by who's responsible. So let's peek back at the main table. Let's say there's something I love to put stuff in here where if the client doesn't, hey Karen, yes, the Gantt chart requires the dependencies. If you don't put the dependencies in, the Gantt chart will just show things, but without the lines. So I might say, you know what, we can't do this without you, client. I love putting stuff in my projects where I show where the client is going to block us if they don't get us a decision or materials or something by a certain time. So I can go back to the Gantt chart and I can say, this is color coded. This is a little subtle. I should probably pick some more obvious colors. That's a little bit dark and mysterious, but that's real easy. I can just come back here into my main table and I can say edit labels, and I can say client is pink, yellow. Oh no, yellow's going to be too close to the other one. Powder blue. Let's do that. So go back to the Gantt chart, and the Gantt chart is still part of your living document. If you take a look at this and you go, oh man, 2 days for 3 days for research planning, what was I thinking? We're going to need like the whole week to do that. If I now change this, everything else will redate itself because of those dependencies. If I go, oh man, we need a lot of research planning on this. Let's stretch this out a few more days. Let's go wild. Boom. Everything moved itself. So you can move things, you can change the length of them, and instantly all kinds of stuff will redraw itself from the Gantt chart. Or you can look at the individual thing. I can click on this and I can see all of the things here, and I can say, I got to change the dependency or change these dates. And so you have access to the information from the table while in the Gantt chart. If you don't love Gantt charts, but you still want to see some sort of plotting of time, Monday also has what they call a timeline view, which is really just kind of blocky. It doesn't show the dependencies. It just kind of shows, hey, in general, stuff's going to happen. And we're just going to kind of roll it up to these blocks. And you can see here, I can also zoom in. So I can say, hey, in general, this is the stuff we're going to do in this order, but you're not seeing the dependencies. You're not really seeing exact dates. You're seeing kind of like epics. You know, for those of you who are involved in Jira or that type of thing, this is a little bit more of like epic visualization versus the Gantt chart being the exact visualization. So that's an example of that. Because we can take the same data and slice it in other ways, I also have a dashboard widget here that is workload. Now, I made all of these manually. If you go into Monday and you go, where's the board Debbie's using? Bad news, this is Debbie's custom board. So I would either have to help you or we'd have to make a much longer video about how I made this. But this is something that my clients generally don't see. So if you want a client to see something, you just come into these three dots and you go to share, and it will give you a URL. But again, you don't have a lot of levels of permissions here. Either someone is invited to your board as a collaborator where they will see pretty much everything unless you've really done granular permissions. And once you do this shareable link, which I'm not going to do, anybody with that link can see this board. There is no password, so you want to be careful there. You can always regenerate that link, and you can stop sharing. So that's a little bit. Let me go back to stop sharing. So you see there's a blue band at the top reminding you that people can see this. Now I've turned that off. So for example, I'm showing here that in this project, I've mapped out 131 hours for me, 145 for each assistant, and I've got hours by person. Why person? Because in the sub items, we had person. So Karen knows that in the old days, we had a little picture of Karen here, and that way over on the workload board, there's a little Karen picture, and it says, here's what's up with that. I've also got this workload, which I think is not going to show anything because I didn't put any of those dates in. But where this workload pulls from is down here. If I put something in the timeline and I have hours, it associates that with the workload widget that I built. So that would show up here, and I have it set to not work people more than a certain number of hours per week. So you get a visualization of, are you giving people too much work? You can even make outside of this board, you can make general dashboards in Monday where I can say, oh no, I've put Karen on 30 hours on this project, 30 hours on this project. Great for him, or too much for him, or not enough for him. So you can have also kind of dashboards that combine multiple boards and bring them together, which I've also done. And then down here is a similar widget. I'm using the workload widget, but instead of the estimated work, I'm using it to show me the hours people have logged. And because they're logging it by task, I'll be able to see how much time they spent on different tasks. That's, in my world, that's not to micromanage them. That's to check that I'm doing well with estimating. Sometimes I learn my estimations are off, and in the future I've got to do better. And it helps when my team puts in the hours they worked with the task that they worked on in those sub items so I can visualize that later. Now get ready for the financials. Melanie, hold on to your hat. So this is a bunch of stuff that I have built mostly for me. The client is not going to see this. Why? Because I've got the word profit all over the place. I've got the word profit in there because I run an agency, a consultancy. My team are marked up. And sometimes I use that markup because my team, I estimated badly. My team spent more time than I expected. So we pull some money out of my profit or markup and we make sure the team gets the work done, even if it means that that money comes out of my pocket. That's fine. I do not go back to clients and go, oops, I didn't estimate right. Please pay. So I want to make sure I have a good profit budget, a buffer there in case I have estimated badly and to make some money as well. So here I've got, if there were different phases, so I can say, what's my phase 1? What's my phase 2? And here I can go into settings and I can say, what should we show? And I can say, okay, for groups, I want you to show phase 1 and phase 2. So now my chart says, okay, you had 2 groups on your board. You had a research and you had a design portion. Here's what the financials look like for that. So I can do, now when I say phase internal, that is because it includes profit. When I say by phase and it doesn't say internal, that's something I usually screenshot and show to the client because none of this has the behind the scenes numbers of what people are going to be paid. Notice this one is more about what I've estimated on paying people or what I'm actually paying them because of time they logged. And this one is more about the estimate. Then I've got other stuff here. How much am I paying by role and different estimations. These are these financials that I keep to myself. And then some of you have seen me show this one before. I love this one. So this is just a simple line chart in Monday. I can't seem to sort these, sort the x-axis better. I don't like the sorting of it, but it is what it is. And so basically what this will do is the blue is how many hours I've estimated for the assistants on my team together, adding them up. And then the yellow is how much time have those people logged for that particular task. So I have a quick visualization of, whoa, I was way off on that estimation. Look at how these lines don't match. Or I can look and say, oh, wow, these lines match up really well. I did a pretty good job estimating. Or, hey, we came in low on this. What does that mean? So, are people getting a sense of Monday and how it's different from something like a Google Sheets or an Excel or an Airtable? Because to me, it's about taking a table of data, having incredible customizations and features within it, and then being able to visualize it in different ways that might help you. Like we talked about before, you could even make a Kanban board here and move things through different statuses or things like that if that is your style. To me, the great thing about Monday is while these boards certainly took me a while to set up and improve upon and keep improving upon, there's so much that I can do with them. I've even done a board where it's like asking people who work with me when they're taking time off, and then I can show that as a calendar. So right now there's nothing on the calendar, but I can go into settings and I can say, okay, it's got stuff by timeline and who's responsible and additional settings. And let's see, choose groups. That's all the groups. So let's see, why aren't we, I don't have anything in the sub items. That could be what's messing us up. I didn't put any timelines in the sub items. Did we say the project was starting later? Maybe that's part of why we're not seeing it. But normally this should then plot. Here we go. I pretended we were starting in August. There you go. So now that's going to be just another way to slice it and take a look at that information. You can share that with your team or your client or your stakeholder, or you can keep it as a view for yourself. So again, one of the things I love about Monday is the ability to take data and slice it a lot of different ways. That was going to be my webinar for today, to talk about using Monday for people who are running research, might be research managers or lead researchers or research freelancers. Any questions or thoughts about Monday? I'm happy to answer anything I can, even though I don't work there and I'm not an expert. I'm just a fan who's been a paying customer for some years. And I do have an affiliate code, even though this is not a paid promotion. I do have an affiliate code. If you'd like to use it, you can go to cxcc.to/Monday, and that does use my affiliate code. Otherwise, if you don't like that, you can just go to monday.com, bypass my affiliate code, up to you. And you'll see Monday now has a few different flavors. Notice I am in the work management flavor. They also have, what is it, CRM, and I think the other one is for like engineering management if you wanted to kind of replace Jira with something like this. So I'll go back to a giant picture of me, and let's see if there's any last questions or comments. Any thoughts from people? Did this seem better, worse than what you normally do? Easier, harder? I wanted to talk quickly about what Monday costs. As of now, and again, I don't work there, so who knows when any of this is going to change. I'll open up their pricing page, monday.com pricing, and we'll talk about that a little bit while I wait to see if there are any questions. Share screen. Okay, there we go. So I'm in work management, and you cannot get fewer than 3 seats. So one downside to Monday is there really, while there is a free trial, there really isn't a system that assumes that you are a sole practitioner. In general, they assume that you are working with a team. So I'm paying for 3 seats. And I'm using one because everybody else I've invited to my boards, I've invited as a guest. Even the people who work with me, I've invited as guests, and they have access to the board and they can log their time and stuff like that, which I do like. You can pay monthly, but notice that to me, standard, let's see, I think I'm on Pro, because if you take a look at it, you can do basic, but you're not going to get the Gantt view. You're not going to get the calendar view. You're not going to get all the free guests. You're not going to get automations. Like at this point, what's the point? And then at the pro level, which I am paying for, you get charts and time tracking and formulas, which you can see I was heavily using. So please note, you will not be able to recreate the types of things I was just doing with Monday with a basic account, and probably not a standard account. You would need Pro. So that does mean that I am paying 600 something a year for this. Some people are going to fall out of their chair and go, that's too much. But the way I look at it is, let's imagine that monday.com costs me 600 something a year. Let's imagine that I get paid $50 an hour, $100 an hour. How many hours of my time would this have to save for this to have been worth it? When you start looking at the value of your time, I think that these types of systems can make sense. But of course, you have to have some money in your bank account to say, oh, yes, I'm going to spend 600 on this. So it is, not cheap, but depending upon what you're doing, and if you are a business, it could be something that you write off on your taxes. But I'm not an accountant. You'd have to look into that. But that's where I am. The Enterprise was quite expensive. I think it started at like $12,000 or $18,000. So even though there are some tools there I wish I could use, there's no way I will ever be able to afford that, or at least not this decade. Maybe, catch me next decade when hopefully Delta CX is the biggest thing in the world. And so that's a little bit about what Monday costs. So you can try it for free, but then beyond that, it is going to be expensive. At the monthly you're looking at, this is euros also. Please note I'm looking at euros right now. This is going to be a little higher if you want American dollars because of the exchange rate. So this is probably 75 or 79 American dollars right now. And again, you have to ask yourself, if you, especially if you're actively working, how much time does this have to save me in a month for, or in a year, for that to have paid for itself? Some of you might say 3 hours. Some of you might say one. Some of you might say, doesn't matter, I can't afford this. Totally fine. All right, so I'm not seeing any other questions. So let's flip back to a giant picture of me and start wrapping up. So remember, anything you could possibly want to know about the Delta CX universe, you can find at the new short URL, dcx.to, DCX for Delta CX. You can join our communities. I've got Maven courses coming in September and October. You can get on the wait list for those. I'll be releasing another one this week. So there is a broken link on my cohorts page because that course is not ready yet, but I've got space coming up. I'm writing a new course on writing and public speaking, which a lot of people have asked me for, so I hope people will consider signing up. There's also, I've got a course coming on product market fit, and I've got a course that isn't live yet, but will come this week on planning qualitative research. And for those of you in my community, if you are interested in any of these courses, contact me because I've got lots of different discount codes based on whether you're a Patreon or you're in the Slack or the Discord or something else. So make sure you reach out. I also do have a discount for the people who are unemployed or living in countries that don't translate well to the American dollar. So if the courses interest you, but you're concerned that you... All right, time's almost up. You're concerned that you can't afford them, please, many of you know how to reach out to me personally and privately. You don't have to tell me your story. I'm not looking to judge anybody. Please just tell me, I'm interested in this course. Can you give me a discount code? The answer will be yes. Alrighty, so with that, I'm going to wrap up for the day and just mention that July is going to be tools and cool tools webinars, tools and techniques. So next week, we're going to be talking about behavior triggers. If you've taken my space workshop, you know behavior triggers. I think I talked about it on the old Delta CX channel years ago. We're going to bring it back because I think we can breathe new life into it. So we'll be talking about that next Monday. And then 2 Mondays from today, which I think is July 22, you want to be here because with all the wacky stuff going on with Figma, I'm getting questions like, can Axure do this? Do I want to learn Axure? Is Axure's learning curve too steep? So what I'm going to do is I've planned a 2-hour webinar where I'm going to show you quickly in Axure how you can do some of the most common things you're doing now in Figma. How can you make components? How can you make styles? How can you make auto layouts? How can you make all these things in Axure relatively quickly and just show people that it exists and the learning curve is not as steep as you thought. A lot of the things you're doing now in Figma will look similar in Axure. The only place it starts getting different is when you start building your interactions. But we'll also talk about how, since a lot of Figma interaction is click-through, first I'll show you how to do that, because that is certainly very easy in Axure. Almost no learning curve there, and then we'll make it a little bit more complex. So, excuse me, so tune in on July 22nd for Figma-ing in Axure, especially for those of you who might be considering leaving Figma or using it less, or you need a tool that's better suited for things like usability testing. So that's what we'll be doing. So I will flame us out of here, and I hope everybody has a super day. We'll see you tomorrow for office hours with Dr. Nick. He'll be here. Catch you later. Bye.